Sometimes you just don't feel like it. Then a memory thrusts you out of bed, back into living again. Hi, Annyeong, Hujambo, Mujawale. Kara here. Welcome to the second episode of A BooMSh. Today, I shall be sharing a life-changing story. A story about death. The story is associated with the K-drama Goblin. Goblin, or Guardian, the Lonely and Great God, is a 16-episode fantasy romance drama which aired on TVN from December 2016 to January 2017. The drama revolves around 4 characters: Kim Shin, the Goblin, Wang Gyo, the Grim Reaper, Kim Sun, Kim Shin's sister, and Ji Woon-tak, the Goblin's bride. For the purpose of this particular story, Ji Woon-tak's character will take center stage. The drama starts in the Goryeo era, where Kim Shin is a decorated military general under the rule of the teenage king Wang Gyo. General Kim faithfully fought for the king and had the love and support of the people, something that did not sit well with the young king's ill-intentioned eunuch, Park Jung-hyun. The eunuch manipulated the young king into becoming suspicious of General Kim and his young sister, Kim Sun, who was the young king's wife, the queen. The young king eventually becomes envious of General Kim and sends him into a suicide mission to secure the northern border, a mission from which he returns victorious, which enrages the king to the point of accusing him of treason, which was punishable by death. In an attempt to reach out to the king, everybody who sides with General Kim is executed, including his little sister who had encouraged him to not surrender. General Kim Shin eventually surrenders and gets killed, his body rotting in a buckwheat field. He is then resurrected 20 years later as a reward for his righteous life and unfair death, also as a punishment for the innocent blood that was shed on his account. He transformed into a goblin with godlike powers. The only way to rid himself of this immortal state is by his predestined bride removing the sword in his chest that was used to kill him. Only then can he finally move to the afterlife. Fast forward to the 21st century, a pregnant woman is involved in a hit and run and is fighting for her life. In that moment, she prays that at least her child be born. The goblin, who happened to be seated on a rooftop watching the city and trying to not be involved in any human affairs, is bothered by this woman's plea that he responds. He brings her and her baby back to life, and the baby happens to be Ji Woon-tak, the goblin's bride. She grows up with the ability to see ghosts, and she was constantly being hunted by the Grim Reaper because she was not meant to live. She was an anomaly. On her 19th birthday, Ji Woon-tak unintentionally summons the goblin, who has now lived 9 centuries of loneliness and suffering from the excruciating pain caused by the invisible sword in his chest. As she makes a wish and blows a candle, they meet for the first time, both wondering what the heck is going on. I watched Goblin in 2018. That's around the time I had developed an enthusiasm for Korean culture, as I mentioned in episode 1 of A BooMSh. I had even met a Ugandan friend from one of the K content spaces online, so I was thrilled. For my 23rd birthday, I decided to have Korean barbecue along with that friend of mine who we shall call Jay. Her birthday was a week before mine, so it made sense to have dinner with her. I was very excited about my growth out of a very dark time, and even more thrilled that I was celebrating my 2nd birthday as an army. It was not a temporary obsession after all. My birthday was on the 18th of the 8th month of 2018. That day was just filled with flags. I don't want to color them red yet, I'll let you decide their color. This was the plan. I'd have dinner with Jay, then go meet up with my sister and 2 of our mutual friends for an outing, spend the night at her hostel, go for the Rolex festival the next day, and then head home. But then I got late. I was traveling from my uni, which is 82 kilometers away from the city, and on that day, I happened to be moving from my hall of residence into a hostel, which consumed a lot of my time. I usually moved by taxi from the trading center to the city, and I would wait for taxis at the equator, only that this time there were no empty taxis and I was already out of time. So as I waited, this random guy approaches me and asks to give me a lift. Because it was my birthday, I thought it's the universe being kind to me, so I said yes. The guy drove me to the city. He was not creepy at all. He was driving from the village and was quite exhausted, so he appreciated the company. At least that's what he said. Anyway, 8 p.m. reaches. I had made a reservation at this Korean restaurant in Kololo. I get there first and Jay joins me later. We were both late due to trouble finding the place. But when we finally settled, the conversation was too good. We lost track of time. The waiters had to tell us they were closing for us to leave. Goblin has spoiled me. maybe it's the Goblin who appear.
Let's hope so.
Okay, I want to socialize.
Okay. Yay! I hope it comes true. Yay!
It was now 11 p.m. and I was late for the other meetup. I did not have one of them self-border apps at the time, and Jay, who did, was having trouble with hers. So we just Google mapped our way to the main road, where we could find some borders. Since we were still excited by our shared interest in Korean culture, we decided to walk as we talked some more. We were so engrossed in the conversation that we did not realize how dark it had become. We were moving through empty streets, past like 1-2 people before another stretch of nothingness. That's when it started to get spooky. We even low-key joked about how spooky it was, and I was like, we should think happy thoughts, so I started to name my biases, and even mentioned Gong-Gyu because I really loved his performance in Goblin. We were nearing our destination, left with a turn that sloped to the main road. As we approached the turn, I got a call from one of my big sisters asking where I was, so I told her I was with my other sister, the one I was on the way to meet. But as I concluded my call, she tells me to put my phone down. There were these two men, boys maybe, walking towards us and a car coming from behind them. Jay sensed the danger before I did, so she said to pass on one edge of the road to give these guys way. But as we moved away from them, they instead came towards us and cornered us and started beating us up. I did not have any expectations at all. It was strange, a very alien experience to me. I was so confused. I wondered if they wanted to steal from us, to rape us. I was honestly confused. So these people are beating us up. I remember being so frightened, especially for Jay, because I felt responsible for her, having been the one who invited her out. I remember seeing her being pulled away from me, and I pulled her back by her backpack. Meanwhile, we are by somebody's gate, laying down on the grass, being slapped and punched by these males. Jay and I using every piece of breath in us to scream, "Help, help, help." The car that was behind the two men earlier stopped beside us, and a man came out. I thought that help had finally reached us, that a sensible human had come to save us from these psychos, only for him to join in on the beating. I lost hope in humanity. My mind just could not comprehend our situation. And that's when it happened. At this point, I knew I was done. That they would drag us into the car, drive off to God knows where, and do whatever they pleased with us. I was so scared. I recalled just feeling grief. I went in a deep state of ache. My heart hurt. I zoned out of the physical atmosphere, and I remember being in a state of as if floating. There was nothing. Everything had been stripped away. I remember feeling a realization that all the things that had bothered me did not matter at all. There was no rush of time. Nothing to do with my appearance or people's opinions. I was stripped to the essence. Nothing in that place mattered. But I remember vividly being filled with regret. Regret so much that my spirit was wailing. I was conscious of my body being beaten, although I couldn't feel the physical pain. Instead, I was hurting from regret. I thought of my mom and how heartbroken she would be if the next day came and on the news there was a corpse found in some trench that turned out to be her daughter. She always told us, still does, to move before it's late and to be cautious, so it really broke my heart thinking of that. I thought of my dad and how much he had invested himself in me. Not just financially, but emotionally too. He always, and still does, share enthusiasm about life since we're in the same line of work. So it broke me to think that my life and potential would just end there. I looked forward to us working together when I'm done with school. And my big sisters, who are my earliest mentors, they love me and are proud of me, keep encouraging me and rooting for me to do the things that I love. I hurt from the thought of them losing their little girl. Then gone were my heart to my little siblings. They take after me, especially the twin girls. We share passions and I teach them whatever I can, from handiworks like crafts to soft skills like writing. I even ushered them into the world of K-pop. We have a very strong bond, and of all people in the world, they were who would hurt most, and it would destroy them. Given all that we shared, my heart pained so much. I thought of all the swallowed words, the unsung songs, the unsaid I love yous. I thought of how my words, my poetry, my stories would just get discarded in books and never be heard. It hurt me that I had so much potential and I would die as potential and never get to live out any of my dreams. I'd never been in love romantically. I felt like I wasted my life. Nothing mattered. Not my long list of insecurities, not the harshest criticism or the most unkind words said to me. Nothing mattered but me in that moment. My heart was so torn that I willed to live just to rectify it. In Goblin, Go-Eun Tak's mom once told her that at the moment of life and death, make a wish with a powerful desire. Maybe then a soft-hearted God might hear you. And I remember in that moment uttering the most heartfelt, the most honest Jesus that has ever come out of my mouth. And before I knew it, the men ran into their car and drove off. A kind God must have heard my plea and come to my rescue. I was back in my body. All that was in my head was run. I could have run an Olympic race in that moment and won. My shoes had gone off, so Jay helped me pick them up, and we ran down the curve. I can never forget the roughness of the tarmac against my feet. We found a man and his security personnel, and we asked for help. We wanted to safely move to where we could access transportation. And as we were still trying to explain ourselves, a self-builder passed by and we stopped. Now that I think about it, we must have been ridiculous. Imagine you're just trying to get into your house and these two girls come panting and talking about beating and men and things that make no sense. Anyway, the self-builder took us to our next destination. Jay went to her hostel and I continued to the other celebration. I didn't want to shake anyone, so I didn't say anything until the next day. And I never told my parents to this day because I didn't want them to restrict my other siblings' movement because of my bad experience. That incident really traumatized me. I sometimes get anxiety attacks when I'm walking on the street by myself, and I fear terribly to move at night or when it's dark. I fear the darkness so terribly. I should get some therapy. That incident, however, put everything in perspective for me. I learned what truly mattered to me. The most important things in life showed themselves to me. I realized that I'm not a person of my own, that I am loved, and that I have people who look up to me, people who cheer on for me, and that in being myself, I influence those coming after me, even sometimes inspire those who went before me. I particularly became conscious of how I carried myself when I started to see my little sisters subconsciously pick off some of my ways. I knew I had to level up, however small and however hard it would be, because these little girls I adore were feeding off my energy, and I wanted them to be everything good and beautiful. I also learned to treat myself with kindness. The same amount of energy and dedication and goodwill I had for my loved ones is the same energy and love I needed to give myself. Because, again, it's a cycle. I can't give what I don't have. So if I truly want my little sisters to be the best versions of themselves that they could ever be, I had to be that for myself first. Because that is the energy they would subconsciously pick from me. One of my friends joked about how poetic the whole situation was. Dying on your own birthday. I remember feeling even the least bit of satisfaction that I at least would have had Korean barbecue before my death. There's this quote from The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho that talks about how it's better to die in the midst of trying to realize your destiny than dying like millions of other people who never knew what their destinies were. So from that day on, I made it a point to pursue those things that excite me, so that when that day comes when I face death, I'll be happy that I truly lived.